Incredible rescue revealed, heartwarming journey of a dairy cow saved from a sea urchin trap. The wind howled like a banshee as the storm churned the usually tranquil shores of Lake Michigan into a raging tempest. And amidst it all, a beloved dairy cow named Bessie found herself caught in a dire situation. The gentle creature, with her big brown eyes and soft, warm hide, had always been a part of the heart and soul of the Miller family dairy farm. Her calm demeanor soothed Jake's two children, Emma and Luke, as they played in the fields, and she was a steadfast companion to Jake and his beloved wife, Sarah. But today, chaos engulfed the town. When the storm finally subsided, Bessie had washed ashore, tangled in a sea urchin trap. The sight sent shockwaves through the small community of Elkhart Lake. As residents rushed to rescue her, rumors of a clash began to brew. Local fishermen saw her not as a cherished member of the community but as a nuisance threatening their livelihood. Yet, to Jake, she was a testament to hard work, love, and resilience, the embodiment of the American spirit. Tensions ran high. Whispers filled the air about the farmers clinging to outdated traditions, dragging behind those who embraced technological change. Jake felt the prickle of judgment, the weight of stereotypes pressing down on him like a leaden cloak. He was fighting not only for Bessie's life but for the very dignity of the farmer's existence. His existence. In the quiet moments on the farm, Jake wrestled with self-doubt. Was he just an antiquated relic, clinging to a way of life that no longer mattered? Or was everything his family held dear worth fighting for? As he looked at Sarah's worried face and the kids' innocent eyes, he realized that love connected them all. They drew strength and hope from Bessie, her heart, her spirit, and the unyielding bonds of kinship. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the townsfolk debated, Jake's determination burned even brighter. He approached neighbors, appealing to their shared love for the little things in life, like kindness and community. Bessie's plight wasn't just her own, it was a reflection of their collective struggle. The rescue operation morphed into a symbol of unity. Everyone chipped in. The excitement buzzed like the flutter of wings. Friends and neighbors gathered, laughter intertwining with anticipation. Jake felt a spark of hope for the first time in weeks. Yet, doubt still clawed at his heart. Would they truly come together? Could they see past the storm to save what mattered? The day of the rescue dawned. Jake stood before the crowd, his heart pounding like a drum. Their eyes were on him, the weight of expectation heavy. Would they rid themselves of prejudice to save a soul that had given them joy? The answer seemed just out of reach, hanging in the air like the calm before a storm. The morning sun broke through the remnants of the storm, casting a warm glow over Elkhart Lake. Jake stood at the edge of the water, feeling the cool breeze on his face. He glanced at the crowd, a mix of familiar faces from the farm, fishermen in their weathered caps, and others whose apprehension was palpable. He could sense the tension. Would today be the day when they could all come together? As he took a deep breath, Jake felt something shift inside him. He recalled the moments spent with Bessie in the fields, her gentle presence reassuring him as he worked the land. That bond was worth fighting for, worth facing any hostility they might encounter. With a determined heart, he stepped forward, encouraging everyone to rally together for Bessie's sake. "Let us set aside our differences," Jake called out, his voice steady but impassioned. "Bessie needs us, this community needs us. Isn't that what makes us stronger? When we stand united?" There was a murmur from the crowd. Some exchanged glances, while others remained skeptical. A fisherman, tall and burly with salt and pepper hair, crossed his arms. "You're sentimental, Miller. But the truth is, she's been causing us trouble. We can't afford to save every farm animal." Jake felt his heart sink. For a moment, he feared that his words had fallen flat. But then Emma, with her bright eyes filled with tears, stepped forward. Uncle Tom, please. Bessie is my friend. She has helped us through hard times. Just like we have to help her now. The crowd seemed to waver, and Jake felt a flicker of hope ignite. Luke clasped Emma's hand tightly, raising his other arm to wave in the air as if to rally the gathering. Their innocence and unwavering belief in community shot through the air like a light piercing dark clouds. Yeah. Echoed a voice from the back, one of their neighbors who ran a bakery, still streaked with flour from his morning preparations. If we can save a cow, maybe we can save our community. Slowly, faces softened. One by one, fishermen began to put down their tools, gathering closer to Jake. There was hesitation, but with every word, they shared stories of their own connections to the land, the farms, and yes, even to Bessie. Tides turned as they remembered past summers when each person, each animal, was woven together into the fabric of their lives. With renewed energy, the group moved down to the shoreline where Bessie lay, trembling but alive. Jake knelt beside her, brushing his hands gently across her soft hide. If they came together, maybe they could free her from the trap that held her in place. On three. We lift her together. He rallied. Eyes met, nods of determination followed. The moment of action was ripe. Hard hands and caring hearts aligned, and everyone prepared for the lift that could change everything. But just as they were about to start, a sudden roar of an engine interrupted the fleeting moment of unity. A boat sped across the water, its captain evidently oblivious to the fragile scene unfolding below. Jake's heart raced. They were so close, could this derail everything? The boat drew closer, creating crashing waves, splashing water onto the shore as everyone turned, anxious eyes fixated on the approaching vessel. What now? Someone shouted, battling against the rising tide of panic. A surge of tension filled the air, heavier than before. Jake knew that this moment could define more than just Bessie's fate, it could redefine who they were as a community. As the boat twisted and turned, the roar of its engine overhead like a thundercloud, the questions swirled like the storm that had just passed. Would their efforts hold against the coming storm? The boat grew closer, its engine roaring like a lion. Jake could see the captain now, a young man with wild hair, oblivious to the scene unfolding on the shore. Panic rippled through the crowd. Would he stop in time, or were they about to witness disaster? Everyone, hold steady. Jake shouted, raising his hands in hopes of calming the crowd. He needed to focus, to channel their energy away from fear and toward action. We're not done yet. On three, remember? But as the boat circled, the waves crashed against the rocks, sending spray into the air. Bessie moaned softly, her eyes wide with fear. Jake leaned closer, whispering reassurance. I won't let anything happen to you, girl. He could almost feel her heartbeat in rhythm with his own. Emma squeezed his arm, her voice trembling. Jake, do you think? Just trust me, Emma. We can do this. He felt the warmth of her small hand anchoring him, reminding him of what they were fighting for. With each passing second, the tension grew thicker. Fishermen braced themselves, fingers gripping tight to the shoreline. Some exchanged worried glances, reluctant to swap their tools for unity. Maybe Bessie wasn't worth the risk. Maybe it wasn't worth it for them. Then, something flickered in Jake's chest. He glanced back at the crew, his friends, neighbors, fellow farmers. A spark ignited within them. They shared stories. They were family to each other. They had to weather this storm together. As the boat drew up alongside the shore, the captain finally cut the engine. Silence fell, heavy and expectant. He leaned over, peering at the scene. What's going on here? His voice boomed, confrontational and confused. Jake stepped forward, the adrenaline kicking him into action. We're saving Bessie. Can you help us? There was no hesitation. The captain's eyebrows rose with surprise, but then understanding seeped in. He could see the community rallying, the kids on the brink of tears, waiting for their friend to be saved. The captain turned back, his face softening, as if a bridge had formed from his heart to theirs. Okay, he nodded, what do you need? The momentum shifted. On three. Jake shouted again, urgency filling his voice as strength surged through the crowd. The fishermen, the bakers, and the families linked arms, steeling their resolve. 1, 2, 3. They lifted together, the collective force of their strength pushing against the weight of despair. Bessie stirred, her hoof resting against the sand, her warmth tangible amidst the chaos. Slowly, with every combined effort, she began to rise. A collective gasp filled the air. Hope blossomed like a vibrant flower. They worked in synchrony, their hearts beating as one, faces alight with determination, but then, as Bessie rose slightly higher, the ground beneath her shifted. The soft soil, once firm and nurturing, crumbled under the impact. Jake gasped, eyes wide as they struggled to hold her weight against the shifting earth. "Hold on!" Jake yelled. The crowd leaned in, pressing their shoulders against Bessie's side, voices rising in unison, driving back the fear as they fought against gravity itself. Just as their resolve seemed to waver, Emma's voice pierced through, fierce and unwavering. "Don't let go. Bessie needs us." Those words fanned the flames of hope. Hearts hammered louder, hands gripped tighter. Yet moments before they could stabilize her, the ground shifted again, menacingly. Could they truly save her, or would this be the bittersweet end of their efforts? Jake held his breath, thoughts racing. The bond of their community had never felt stronger. But could it hold against fate, against nature itself? And as the sun shone down through the clouds, illuminating their resolve, the ground beneath them shifted ominously. Would this be their victory, or their loss? The crowd surged forward, adrenaline mixing with sheer desperation. Jake could feel the strain in his arms, muscles burning as he fought with everything he had. Bessie was more than just a cow, she was part of their community's heartbeat, a shared history whispered through every meal, every gathering. "Keep pushing!" Jake yelled, his voice cracking against the roar of the waves. The captain had jumped down from his boat, joining them, his brawny arms helping to lift Bessie's weight higher. Each second felt like a lifetime. The earth continued to shift beneath their feet, and Jake's heart raced with the knowledge that time was running out. Emma's small frame trembled beside him, yet her face reflected fierce determination. "Jake, we have to pull her back. Now." Her voice rose above the chaos, fierce and unwavering. There was something in her eyes, a spark that ignited a fire within him. "On 3 again!" Jake shouted. 1, 2, 3. They pushed together once more, the sounds of their exertion merging into a single word: Bessie. It echoed along the shore, a battle cry for their friend. Bessie's eyes flickered, and for an agonizing moment, it seemed like she would slip back into the abyss that threatened to swallow her whole. Suddenly, there was a loud crack, a loud snap that echoed like thunder. The wooden structure next to them, an old pier that had stood for decades, creaked ominously under the tension. Jake glanced over just in time to see it start to lean. Panic swept through him, but there was no going back now. "We're almost there. Don't stop." The urgency surged through him like electricity, pushing him to rally everyone once more. The crowd leaned in tighter, grunts and cries filling the air. Each person poured not just strength but heart into the struggle. Faces strained with effort, tears mixed with salty sea spray. For a moment, the world outside their bubble faded away. It was just them and Bessie. With a final collective heave, Bessie finally began to rise, a slow, monumental motion like the sun breaking through a stormy sky. As she emerged from the grip of the sand, a collective cheer erupted. It was raw, a primal noise that soared above the crashing waves. But then the ground shifted again, more violently this time. "No!" Jake screamed, feeling his heart plummet. They were making no progress. Instead, the earth was sinking, pulling them in rather than letting them out. In that instant, Jake felt an overwhelming surge of fear coursing through him. He glanced at tattered faces around him, shared desperation sparkling in their eyes. It was as if they were all collectively weighing the odds, wrestling against fate itself. Then Jake felt a gentle nudge at his shoulder. It was Emma, her voice steadier than before. "Jake, we need a plan. If we can't lift her like this, we need to stabilize the ground, maybe with the boat." The captain was already running back toward his vessel, waving his arms. "Get the ropes. We can use them to anchor her." Realization struck Jake like lightning. They needed to rethink their approach. They rushed to the captain, his crew already scrambling to grab lines and knots. A new hope flickered within him, but would they be able to stabilize Bessie before it was too late? With the sun blazing overhead and tension tightening around them, it was clear, they were at a pivotal moment. As they set to work, every heartbeat resonated with potential. Would this shift lead them to success, or would the tide take it all away? Jake focused on the task ahead, breathless in anticipation. Next, they would be facing their greatest challenge yet. The captain skidded to a halt by the boat, gathering the crew. The frantic energy of the crowd fueled Jake's resolve. "We only have a few minutes," he shouted, his voice like a whip cracking through the growing chaos. The waves, large and frothy, crashed insistently on the shore, each one reminding them of the risk lurking just beneath the surface. Emma was already untying the ropes with nimble fingers, her determination shining bright. "Let us make a loop. If we can tie it around her, we might hold her steady while we pull." Jake helped, knot by knot, the fibers rough against his hands. Each time he glanced back at Bessie, who lay panting heavily, hope and fear danced in a bittersweet tango deep within him. They had to believe it would work. The air thickened with anxiety but also an odd sense of resolve. They wouldn't abandon Bessie, they would not let her down. As the last knot was secured, the crowd formed a new line, readying themselves with shoulders pressed against the force of the tide. "On the count of 3. Jake called again, their voices melding into one unified whole. 1, 2, 3. They pulled with everything they had, straining against the stubborn earth. In that moment, Jake felt a swell of something greater than himself, a wave of connection, a community joined by one shared goal. The cheers erupted, mingling with cries filled with worry and hope, but the earth heaved violently beneath them, as if it was protesting their efforts. A sudden cracking sound pierced the air. The old pier couldn't take it anymore. "Step back." A voice rang out from the crowd, panic rising in its pitch. Jake felt a jolt of adrenaline. They couldn't lose focus now. The crew struggled with the ropes, securing their grips as the ground shuddered once more. Bessie let out a pained moo that cut through the chaos, shaking Jake to his core. He couldn't let the fear seep into him, he needed to lead. "Give it everything. She's counting on us." The ground lurched and heaving, but the crowd persisted. Rope fibers strained, muscles screamed, and voices merged, creating a chorus of determination. Every inch Bessie budged felt monumental, but with each step forward they took, the earth crumbled further back, like time slipping through their fingers. Suddenly, something changed. An exhale washed through the group, a collective breath held since this chaos began. They could feel it in the air, hope stitching itself back together between them. "She's moving," Emma shouted. And she was. Bessie began to inch her way out, her legs shaking but resolute. The moment felt surreal, like they were acting in a scene only the heart could fully understand. But as they drew her closer, shadows swept in the corner of Jake's eyes. He shifted, his heart racing again. It was a massive wave, cresting higher than the last, ready to crash down on everything they had worked for. "Back up," he yelled, the urgency thrumming through him. With Bessie almost free, time hung heavy, teetering on a knife's edge, as if they had a choice to make. Would they pull hard against the tide, risking all, or back away to safety? Tension spiraled around them, an unseen predator lurking in the deep. Jake's heart pounded, he could almost hear it over the roar of the ocean. The choice weighed on him more than anything ever had. What would they sacrifice for the sake of one cow? The crew and the crowd turned toward him, their expressions etched with worry and hope. He could feel the charge in the air, a web of possibilities tied together by faith and fear. What would happen next? Did they have what it took to see this through? The ocean roared as the massive wave crested above them, casting shadows over the desperate scene. Jake's pulse raced, he felt the weight of the moment dangle before him like a delicate thread, teetering on the edge of disaster. "Pull!" he shouted, desperation mingling with command. The crew strained further, every muscle in their bodies locked in a unified effort. Bessie mooed again, a sound that was both a plea and a promise of strength. That cow represented more than just a farm animal to them. She was a part of their lives, a piece of their community. Jake could almost see the memories flash before him, a kid chasing her around the barn, Emma crying out in laughter after accidentally stepping in muck, and the way they all rallied together for the harvest. Now, Bessie needed them. Another crack echoed, and the pier shuddered like a beast in pain. Dust and splintered would rain down around them. Jake looked at Emma, whose eyes were wide with fear but filled with determination. They couldn't let doubt seep in, they had to believe they could do this. "We can't stop," he urged, feeling both the power of their unity and the gnawing fear of failure. The water surged forward, the wave looming like a monstrous wall. It was as if the ocean itself had taken a breath, preparing to swallow them whole. Just as Jake opened his mouth to announce a new plan, he felt the tug of the rope behind him. Bessie was moving. A slow, unsure step forward, but a step nonetheless. "She's coming," Emma shouted, her voice ringing like a bell, cutting through the chaos. Jake felt a spark ignite in him. Could it really be happening? Could they pull her free? He joined the crew, coordinating their efforts, urging them to dig deeper and pull harder. The connection between them was electric, a pulsing force of determination. "Now!" he yelled, and the shrill shout seemed to break the tension. With a final, collective heave, they surged backward, and Bessie stumbled forward, half tangled in the ropes but inching gradually closer to safety. A chorus of cheers erupted, filled with joy and anticipation. But the massive wave remained unyielding, still cresting, now drawing impossibly close. Jake didn't want to think of what would happen if they encountered a wall of water without the cow safe. Fear clawed at the back of his mind, but he pushed it away. "Focus on Bessie," he shouted, pushing everyone to rally around her. Every hand helped, every encouraging shout drove the negativity away. Bessie was almost there. Just a few more steps. Then, in a powerful crash, the wave broke, rushing towards them, an unwelcome guest to the victory they were about to touch. "Everyone back!" Jake screamed, instinctively raising his arms to shield Emma, the animals, but they kept pulling. In that split second, where time slowed to a crawl, Jake felt the world tilt on its axis. The strength of the ocean collided with their hope. Would they be able to protect Bessie, or would this be their defining moment of loss? The water crashed down around them, swallowing what they had fought to save. He squeezed his eyes shut, bracing for impact, wishing hard that the fight wasn't slipping from their grip. What was about to happen lingered in the air like smoke. Could they all survive this moment together? Water engulfed Jake, the icy grasp wrapping around him, dragging him down into its depths. For a moment, everything felt surreal, muffled as if he were in a dream. The roar of the ocean faded into a distant echo, and all he could think of was Bessie, her brown and white coat swirling in the currents. Panic surged in him, mixing with a desperate hope. He clawed his way upward, fighting against the tide that wanted to keep him submerged. Gasping for air, he broke the surface, his heart hammering like a drum. Emma was beside him, struggling but alive, her eyes wide with fear and determination. They swam together, instinctively moving toward the barn they had come to fill with memories, laughter, and resilience. "Bessie!" Emma shouted, her voice barely cutting through the roar of the waves. Jake looked around, desperate for any sign of their beloved cow. Then, in the distance, he spotted her, half sunk in debris, struggling against the current. The hope that ignited within him was like a flame, flickering defiantly against the overwhelming odds. "We have to get to her," he shouted. Together, they swam, dodging loose flotsam that had been tossed around like toys in a child's room. Other crew members emerged from the water, battered but alive, their eyes frantic. One by one, they fought the waves, propelled by the singular purpose of saving Bessie. As they drew closer to her, Jake's resolve hardened. He realized that saving Bessie wasn't just about preserving a cow, it was about holding on to their community, their past, and their future. He immersed himself in the task at hand. "Hold on. We'll get you out," he cried, reaching for Bessie's head, feeling the warmth of her breath mingling with the cold water. Bessie struggled, mooing weakly, her eyes wide but trusting. Tears blurred Jake's vision as he and Emma grasped the ropes tethering her. "On 3. Emma shouted, counting down. With one last heave, they pulled together, lifting Bessie with the strength of their love and determination. All at once, a wave crashed over them, knocking Jake back. Time felt elastic, and his body was pulled under again. Desperation clawed at him. He fought to break the surface, panic bubbling in his gut. This time, he locked his gaze onto Bessie. She needed him. With renewed strength, he propelled himself upward, finally breaking free once more. Gasping, he found Emma still clutching Bessie's rope, her face fierce with determination. They were almost there, but the waves were relentless, thrashing like a wild beast defending its territory. Just when Jake thought it was all over, he spotted one of the larger crew members, a man named Hank, swimming towards them, his massive frame cutting through the water like a ship. "Grab on!" Hank bellowed, reaching out a hand to pull both Jake and Emma closer to safety. The relief surged through Jake as they latched onto Hank. Together, they pulled Bessie in the direction of the shore, each stroke edging them closer to solid ground. Just then, a realization washed over Jake. Bessie wasn't just a piece of their past, she embodied their strength, their fight, their ability to persevere. As they approached the shoreline, battered but unbroken, all he could think was that they had to save more than a cow. They were rescuing a life that contributed to their own. But as they reached the safety of the sand, a new fear gripped him deep in his chest. What if the forces that had brought forth the wave were merely a precursor to something far worse? What if their fight was far from over? The storm clouds rolled on the horizon, dark and menacing, foreboding more trouble than they could reckon with. Jake realized that the battle wasn't just for Bessie anymore, it was for their entire community's future. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue on the water as the waves settled into a calm rhythm. But for Jake, the battle felt far from over. Adrenaline still coursed through his veins while he and Emma huddled by Bessie, who lay on the sandy shore, trembling but alive. They rubbed her sides, whispering soothing words, hoping to reassure her as much as themselves. "Is she going to be okay?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Fear clutched at her heart as she stroked Bessie's neck gently. Jake knelt beside Bessie, his palms pressed against her warm coat. "I think she just needs to rest. We got her out. That counts for something, right?" He managed a weak smile, though his heart raced with unspoken worries. Behind them, the other crew members emerged from the water, their faces marked with exhaustion but also determination. They had fought not just against the waves but against despair itself. They gathered around, pulling together not just for Bessie but for each other. "This is a win, folks," Hank shouted, raising a fist in the air. "We did it. For Bessie." Cheers erupted, mingling with laughter amid breaths of relief, but in Jake's heart, unease stirred. The sky was heavy with clouds, each one promising more than just rain. As he scanned the horizon, he felt a weight grow heavier on his shoulders. What if there's more to come? He murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Emma, catching the quiver in his voice, shifted closer. "Jake?" she asked gently. "What's wrong?" "I don't know. I just keep thinking, what if this was just the beginning?" He cast a glance towards the village beyond the shoreline. What if the storm wasn't just about the waves? What if it meant something worse? Like what? Emma pressed, her brow furrowing with concern. He took a deep breath, his chest tightening with every thought. What if other farms get hit? What if people lose more than just livestock? His mind raced. The community depended on Bessie, but it depended on so much more: family, friends, the land itself. Laughter dimmed, and a shadow loomed over their small crowd. It came from Hank, whose jovial nature faded into a grave expression. "I heard from Tom," he said, his voice low. "He said there were reports of flooding further up the coast. If that wave came barreling in." Jake's heart sank. "We have to warn everyone," he declared, urgency making his voice strong. He turned to the group, eyes alight with determination. "We can't just sit here. Hank nodded, rallying the crew. Let us get to work. As they sprang into action, thoughts of Bessie mingled with worries for their neighbors. Every one of them had bonds tying them to the land and the community. They shared hopes, dreams, and now this looming threat. Jake felt driven by that connection, the shared weight of their future. With the last touches of daylight painting the sky, the team set off towards the heart of the village, strength drawn from not just their win but the fight ahead. They moved in unison, fueled by the thought of what was at stake, but as Jake glanced back at Bessie, now resting in the embrace of the sand, doubt crept in. They had saved one life today, but could they save many? And as Bessie looked back at him, her eyes seemed to echo his fear. What if they couldn't? The wind picked up, and so did the buzz of unease. What awaited them in the village? Would the community rise to meet the challenge, or would the storm take what they held dear? Jake swallowed hard, prepared to face whatever came next as the clouds darkened above. As Jake and the crew made their way toward the village, the air thickened with anticipation and uncertainty. Every footstep echoed the same unvoiced worry threading through their minds. The path was familiar, yet it felt different under the weight of what they faced. Hank led the charge, his determination almost palpable. We need to split up, cover more ground. I'll head through the east side, check on Tom and the others, he called. The others nodded, faces set with resolve mixed with fear. Jake, Emma, you two take the market square, Hank instructed before his figure disappeared into the trees. Jake felt a surge of responsibility. Okay, let us go, he said, urgency inching his voice higher. He grasped Emma's hand, pulling her along. The market square came into view, a bustling heart of their community. But today, it felt more like a ticking clock counting down to disaster. The distant sounds of laughter were overshadowed by the ominous whispers of the wind, which brushed through the stalls like a ghost. As they approached, Jake could see the familiar faces, anxious and confused. Merchants were packing up, their goods left half-assembled, worried parents called out for children who hadn't returned yet. Everyone! Jake called out, raising his voice to cut through the noise. The crowd turned towards him, a mix of scrutiny and relief washing over their faces. We need to talk. Is it about the storms? A woman called out, her face pale. Jake nodded, swallowing the tight knot in his throat. There has been a report of severe flooding up the coast. We think we're at risk. Gasps echoed through the crowd, faces turning grim. Are you sure? Someone mumbled from the back. We have to prepare for the worst, he urged, his heartbeat thudding in his ears. Secure your homes, gather supplies. If the storm hits, we need to be ready. We can't wait until it's too late. Emma stepped forward, voice strong and steady. We have each other. If we work together, we can protect what we love most. This community has overcome challenges before. We can do it again. A murmur of agreement cascaded through the crowd, followed by nods of solidarity as they glanced at one another. Determination sparked in the eyes around them as unity took the place of chaos. But then, from behind, a frantic shout pierced the air. Jake! Emma! You need to see this. It was Liam, one of their neighbors, barreling towards them with panic etched across his face. What is it? Jake demanded, anxiety clawing at him. There's a sinkhole forming near Willow Creek. It's swallowing everything in its path. Panic surged in Liam's voice, and dread settled in Jake's stomach. An urgent murmuring rose as chaos began to unravel. If the waters rise, that will be our only escape route. Jake's heart raced. We can't waste time. We need to alert everyone near Willow Creek right now. Plan set, the trio rushed off. With each step, anxiety mixed with a sense of purpose. They were running against the clock. But just as they rounded a bend, the ground trembled beneath them. The rumble of the earth clawed at their hearts. In that moment, the skies darkened, an ominous wave approaching from the horizon casting a shadow over them all. Look! Emma yelled, pointing to the swelling sea. Fear coursed through Jake as he saw it, an ominous wave forming on the horizon, a roaring reminder that they were not just fighting for survival, but for everything they held dear. How many lives could be saved? Keep moving. We must warn everyone. Jake shouted, fighting against the rising tide of fear that threatened to consume them, but as they sprinted back towards the crowd, something loomed larger than they could have ever anticipated. What awaited them before the storm hit? Would their unity be enough to face the wrath of nature that now bore down upon them? As Jake, Emma, and Liam raced toward the market square, panic surged through them like a wildfire. The town of Elkhart Lake had never faced a threat like this, an unpredictable storm with destructive potential bearing down upon them. A solid wall of worry wrapped around Jake's heart like a vice. They needed to act fast, and they needed everyone together. Everyone! Jake shouted again as they reached the square, "The wave is coming. We need to evacuate toward higher ground. Now!" He felt Emma squeeze his hand tighter. Her eyes sparkled with both fear and fierce determination. The musician at the square had just stopped strumming his guitar, his melodies lost on the frantic crowd. All heads turned, whispers flickering into frantic clamor. "What should we do?" A woman in the crowd cried out, her voice rising above the chaos. "Help each other," Jake called. "Gather your children, your neighbors, those who may need extra hands. We're stronger together. Let us secure what we can." The familiar faces around him, those who had shared joy, laughter, and warmth over the years, began to blossom with a new purpose. The bond they shared became their strength. Jake didn't wait to watch them unite, he had to believe in them. He turned back toward Liam, who was panting and visibly shaken. "We need to get to Willow Creek. Help the folks there and alert them to the evacuation." Nodding vigorously, Liam shot off in that direction. Emma stayed close to Jake, her eyes wide but resolute. "Go, Jake." She paused, gripping his arm tightly. "We can do this. I believe in us." "Me too, Em. We won't let fear win." Together, they dashed through the streets of their town, urgency propelling them forward. Adrenaline surged as they rounded the corner and headed down the familiar path toward Willow Creek. As they approached, the ground beneath them trembled again, sending shards of earth cascading down. In the distance, the angry wave began its rapid approach, the sound of crashing water echoing with the thunderous crack of impending doom. Jake's heart raced, but he swallowed hard. "We're not just saving ourselves. We're saving our community." Adrenaline swelled in his chest, reminding him of the day they saved Bessie. They hadn't just battled nature, they grew together, emerging stronger. As they reached Willow Creek, his breath caught in his throat. The sinkhole had expanded, threatening to swallow more than just land. It threatened memories, lives, the essence of their home. Neighbors were gathered near the edge, some fearful and others striving to save belongings too precious to abandon. "Listen!" Jake shouted, forcing his voice to rise above them. "We must evacuate. This is a serious risk not just for the creek, but the entire valley. We can't wait." They didn't hesitate. People hustled and grabbed their necessities. "Help each other," Emma shouted with all her might, just as Jake had taught her. Amidst the flurry of frantic preparations, Jake turned his focus to the approaching wave now visible on the horizon. It grew taller, darker, and it felt like the sky itself was intent on swallowing them whole. "Can everyone hear me?" he yelled again. "Please move towards the hills. Keep your loved ones close. We will be safe together." With a renewed rhythm, they streamed up the hill towards safety, leaving Willow Creek behind. Jake could feel the rise of hope buoying them, just like the resilience they had shown earlier at the beach. As they climbed, Jake kept glancing back. Would they make it in time? The ground shook with more vigor, and twigs splintered underfoot. The once gentle brook turned fierce, whipping up a current that reflected the panic surging through the town. "Faster!" Liam shouted, urgency fueling his steps. Then suddenly, the roar of the wave thundered like a train, a reminder that nature didn't wait for anyone. The floodgates would break loose any moment now. "We're almost there." Jake urged, grasping Emma's small hand, feeling her unwavering faith driving him to keep going. The last few moments collapsed into a single breath as they reached the summit, a hill far removed from the chaos below. They turned, breathless and wide-eyed, watching in horror as the wave crashed down on Willow Creek, drowning every last memory they had just fought to protect. Jake held Emma close, shielding her against the cold wind howling in disarray. But as he looked around, he noticed something remarkable: they weren't alone. The entire community stood beside him, more than just friends but a united family ready to face whatever aftermath awaited. "What now?" Emma asked softly, glancing at the chaos with wide, innocent eyes. "We rebuild," Jake replied, fighting back tears. "Together." In that moment, he knew hope wasn't lost. They weren't just saving Bessie, they saved one another. They dug through darkness and emerged on the other side stronger, bonded by love, family, and a fierce desire to protect all they held dear. The rain fell softly now, kissing their skin with a promise of rebirth. And in that haunting moment of darkness, hope began to shine anew. A shared understanding swept through everyone, a recognition of the ties that bound them, a binding force that continues to carry them through storms, floods, and life itself. There would be a lot of work ahead. But even with the threat of storm clouds ahead, Jake felt a radiant smile bloom on his face. The Miller family, the town, were ready to charge forth. With courage igniting their spirits, together they would rise again. Now is the time for you to make a difference. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on the next incredible stories like this one. Leave a like now, your support helps the channel thrive. Comment below, sharing your reactions and feelings about this heartwarming ending. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to witness this inspiring transformation. This is the moment to show your support for our journey together. Don't wait not even one more second.